Hello and welcome to this episode of White Glove Geography. Today you will receive your assessment feedback on Changing Economic World 3, our Brazil case study. At this point, pause and attempt the 6 starter questions on the reverse of your assessment. At this point, pause the clip again and mark and add green pen feedback to each of your questions. Give yourself a big tick if you got these correct. Question 1A was worth 2 marks and asked you to describe the location of Brazil. You also had Figure 1 to assist you with this. Due to this being a described question, you only needed to say what you saw, no need to explain why. The question was worth 2 marks, so 2 separate points were needed. For example, the Atlantic Ocean runs along the east coast of Brazil, and Brazil is located in the continent of America. Now add any additional points in green pen, even if you achieved 4 marks. Question 1B. Outline one reason for the regional importance of your chosen LIC or NEE. Our chosen LIC or NEE was Brazil. This question was worth 2 marks again, so required 1 point, but this time with some development. That would be through the use of your AO2 statements such as, this means that, this is because. For example, one way you could have answered this question was, Brazil is important on a regional scale due to the amount of land it covers and population size. This means that it is very influential in both trading and political decisions for South America. We can see in this example, they have covered the point of population size and land covered, and then developed this point with this means that. Other regional importance that you could have covered were largest member of the Missouri Trading Group, provides exports across South America, access to Atlantic ports for landlocked countries within South America. At this point, pause the video, highlight or underline in green pen your AO1 point and your AO2 statement used to develop your point. Following this, choose another point to practice developing this again. So from your regional importance bullet points, pick one, add your AO2 statement to improve. Question 2A. Explain 2 environmental characteristics of your LIC NEE has created economic opportunities, worth 4 marks. This question, like I said, is worth 4 marks and requires 2 separate points, both with development this time. Again, using AO2 statements such as, this means that, this is because, this leads to. These points need to link to the environment, so for example, as you can see to the side of the slide, plants, habitats, ecosystems and animals. Any links to social aspects, so for example people in their communities, would gain you 0 marks, even if they are excellent points. An example for this answer would be, a large range of climate zones makes Brazil suitable to grow many crops such as soya. This means that Brazil is able to grow and sell these cash crops to generate income to then invest in the development of the country. Pause at this point, underline and highlight your AO1 point and your AO2 statements. You should have 2 of these. Also, use the example to help improve or add an additional point if needed to your answer in green pen. Question 2B. Briefly outline the cultural context of your chosen LIC or NEE. So once again, we're sticking with Brazil for this. The question required 1 point with development. Possible areas of discussion were 3 centuries of colonial rule by the Portuguese has influenced language and culture. Architecture is also influenced and linked to colonial rule. Religion is predominantly Roman Catholicism, links to the Portuguese rule, and African immigration has influenced dance and music, for example the Rio Carnival. Have you then included statements such as this leads to, this influenced, this led to, this means that, to develop your point. At this point, pause the video and ensure your work has included these AO2 statements. Underline them in green to make this clear. On the current slide you can see Figure 3, which demonstrates the employment structure from 1961 to 2011. Question 3A asks you to compare the employment structure from 1961 to 2011. For this question, fewer developed points or 4 simple points could be made to achieve the 4 marks. The question asks you to compare figure 3, so it is vital that you only use information from the figure. Any of your own knowledge will not be given marks. At this point, pause the video, highlight where you have quoted the figure. At this point, if it's not clear you have made any quotations from the figure, add them in green pen. Question 3b. Define the secondary employment sector, worth 1 mark. The definition of the secondary employment sector is: these industries process and manufacture products from raw materials. Your definition may be very similar but worded slightly different. At this point, even if you achieve the mark, please pause the video and write the exact definition in green pen for future reference. Question 3c. Give an example of a secondary sector with your chosen LIC or NEE, worth 1 mark. This sector example for us is car assembly parts, engine parts and chemicals, especially the example of Jaguar Land Rover and the car assembly factory they built just outside of Rio. This created around 300 jobs in the sector. Please correct this in green pen at this point. All you needed for this answer was the example. In order to be successful with longer mark questions, you must first understand and annotate them. Let's see what others have done. In this example, you can see that the command word of evaluate has been highlighted and the student has started to make a brief plan of advantages and disadvantages and linked to the JLR case study. They've talked about the 300 jobs they created and how this links to the HDI index for the country of Brazil. Another example here, not linking to the Brazil topic, but again you can see the command word and the fact that the figure needs to be used has been underlined by the student. You can also see they have made a plan down the side, putting key information such as the hive to get this information down. Once again, not relating to the Brazil topic, but excellent planning from this student. You can see keywords in the figure underlined or circled, and then you can see a brief plan down the side of advantages and disadvantages and how they're going to lay their work out. If you want to be successful, learn from these successful people. After looking at these successes, we will therefore be decoding our question for longer mark questions as we talk through the slides. Question 4. The advantages of transnational corporations far outweigh the disadvantages a country may experience. To what extent do you agree with this statement, worth 6 marks? Annotations could have included what you can now see on the slide. Pause at this point and add any additional annotations to your questions in green pen. This slide should now be very familiar to yourselves, including all of your assessment objectives we talk about regularly in class. Working through from AO1, our knowledge, so our stuff, our geography stuff, our data, our geographical terms, place names and examples. We then move on to AO2, so this is our understanding and applying. It's letting us know that we know how to use the knowledge. So this means that this results in a knock-on effect. And finally moving on to AO3, so we're making a decision with our understanding, so a final conclusion or mini conclusions throughout our answer, with statements such as this is significant, this is important because. For this question, you should have felt free to use the multi-tool structure as well. All of them work pretty similar, but today we will follow the multi-tool structure. So for example, for this question, you should have had a nice clear introduction to introduce the case study and the place name, then using appeal positive and appeal negative, remembering to add those mini decisions and mini conclusions at the end of each of those, and also including AO2 statements throughout, so this means that this is significant because, a knock-on effect. And then finally weighing up with our final conclusion and making sure to try and use short-term and long-term in there. You may wish to pause at this point and familiarise yourself with the multi-tool structure before moving on. An example structure for this question is now shown on the screen. Pause at this point and read through the structure. Also, mark on your answer where you have used this structure to highlight any possible missing elements to your structure. Have you included an introduction? At least 2 peel paragraphs, if not a third. And have you also used a conclusion? Now visible on the screen is a mark scheme by level for the question. Feel free to pause at this point, read through each section and assess why you may have got which mark you did. For example, a level 1 mark answer has a basic understanding of TNCs, their advantages and disadvantages. Level 2 has a clearer understanding and a well-structured decision. And level 3 will have a clear understanding, they will weigh up their advantages and disadvantages, they will have a balanced argument and also possibly refer to social, economic, environmental, as well as short-term or long-term. Now on the screen we can see a model answer for this question. At this point you may want to pause the clip and complete the following. Highlight your AOs throughout, so where have you used AO1, AO2, AO3? Where can you see in your answer that you've referred to such things for AO1 as JLR, the 240 million they invested, the 300 skilled jobs they created? In your answer, where have you said things such as resulting in, this means that, this leads to? And finally, where is your AO3? So saying, this is significant because, which is significant because, this is important because. At this point as well, make any improvements in green pen using the model answer. The model answer now reads, to a large extent, 75%, TNC such as JLR factory near to Rio in Brazil has more advantages than disadvantages. The large investment of 240 million resulted in technologically advanced production lines, which is significant in keeping costs down and also creating a quality product. Also, the social and education impacts are important. 300 skilled jobs were created and Educational Business Partnership Centre has reached 12,000 local children, resulting in raising aspirations and changing and training a future workforce. However, as JLR is foreign owned, profits go abroad and key decisions are made at the HQ, resulting in less job security. In conclusion, the short-term social and economic impacts, which result in a positive multiplier effect, are more significant than the risks of being foreign owned. Question 5. Suggest one reason why it is important for LICs and NEEs to trade with other countries. This answer again requires 1 point with development using AO2 statements due to its 2 mark worth. 1 mark is for the reason and 1 mark is for the development. An example of this would be, it is important for Brazil to now trade with countries such as China to support sales of secondary goods. This means that goods are sold at a higher price, meaning more profit to invest in the development of such things as healthcare. Other factors you could have considered were the Missouri Group cannot support Brazil's economic growth or maintain that economic growth. Joint trading strategies are needed and it supports other countries in economic growth and generates political links. Pause at this point and make any green pen improvements to your answer using the additional reasons why to trade or the model answer in front of you. Question 6. Using figure 4 and your own knowledge, suggest why aid is not always effective for LICs and NEEs. For this question, you must make it clear that you have used figure 4 and your own knowledge. You can be capped at half marks if you do not use both the figure and your own knowledge. This question is worth 4 marks. You could have discussed any of the disadvantages from figure 4 and also included your own knowledge to develop these points and to further these disadvantages. For example, aid is not always effective for NEEs such as Brazil, as they can become dependent upon this aid, potentially causing a poverty trap. You would then need an additional point on top of this to support your 4 marks. At this point, pause and write a positive and an improvement in green pen. What went well in your answer and what could go better next time? Question 7. Explain why NEEs have a great environmental impact compared to the LIC countries. This is an explain question, so you need to develop the points to say why, not just what is happening. This would be through the use of AO2 statements again, such as, this means that, a knock-on effect, this leads to. The question is worth 4 marks, so requires 2 points with development through AO2 statements. An example of this may be, NEEs such as Brazil often cause greater environmental damage due to the sale of their manufactured goods. This means that goods are produced in large factories, which has a knock-on effect of increased pollution. Other factors that you could have also spoken about were increased road users, deforestation still for primary goods as well as a growth in the secondary manufacturing, toxic waste produced by mining companies such as Vale. An increased population means more food and more water pressures, and an increased population also leads to more sewage. At this point, pause and add green pen to your answer. You may as well wish to highlight your AO1 points and your AO2 statements to highlight where you've achieved mark. Again, question 8 is a longer mark question, this time worth 9 marks plus 3 additional marks for SPAG. At this point again, we will be decoding the question and adding annotations to our answers if you haven't already done so. Question 8 reads, economic development is the only way to improve the quality of life for the population. To what extent do you agree with this statement? So for example, we need to be discussing the economic development, so this involves jobs, investment and money. There needs to be some kind of improvement, so how is this making it better? You need to say if you agree with this to a small or large extent, remember to try and include a percentage. And finally, how has it improved healthcare, education and wealth? At this point, pause and add any annotations to your question in green pen. Again, we saw this slide earlier in the video. This is your assessment objectives. If you're still unfamiliar with these, they can be found in your A to L to support you, but also pause at this point, be familiar with what each of them mean, and just to quickly recap. AO1 is your knowledge, so it's the knowing of the stuff, it's your data, your geographical terms, place names and examples. AO2 is an understanding of your knowledge, so this means that this results in a knock-on effect due to. And AO3 is making a decision with our understanding. So this is significant, this is important because. Again, we're going to follow the multi-tool structure. Feel free to pause at the next point to familiarise yourself. Once again, we should have a clear introduction introducing our case study. At least two peel paragraphs, remembering to add mini decisions at the end of these. This is important, this is significant because, and summarising with a conclusion and trying to link in our conclusion to a small or large extent again, and also is this on a local or a global scale, short term or long term, and social, economic and environmental. On the slide now is a perfect structure shown. Pause at this point, read through the structure and highlight where you've used this structure throughout your answer. Consider anything that is missing and write what is missing in green pen. For example, have you got a clear introduction? Have you got a clear conclusion? Have you used at least two peel paragraphs, if not three? To summarise an answer for this question then. So to a large extent, 70%, I believe that the economic development in Brazil, such as an increased secondary jobs, has improved quality of life. Firstly, economic development has led to an increased amount of secondary jobs. A knock-on effect of this growth is the increased wages for people within Brazil. This means that it is more taxable income for governments. This is significant as the income can be used to improve quality of life through improved healthcare and sanitation in favelas. Secondly, the economic development comes from investment of transnational corporations, such as Jaguar Land Rover. Alongside economic investment, JLR started an education partnership. A knock-on effect of this was 12,000 children received an improved education. This is important as it led to improved quality of life and improved future workforce to support further developments in the future. However, it could be argued that economic developments through such events as the 2016 Olympics did not improve the quality of life in the poorest areas of Brazil. Instead, it is argued that only areas impacted by the event, often more affluent areas, benefited instead. This is significant as it led to conflicts across Rio in particular. In conclusion, I do believe that economic is very significant in the improvement of quality of life across Brazil. While on a long-term basis, more economic development allows the income to support the development of services and infrastructure to support an improved quality of life. This answer would receive full marks but is nowhere near perfect. You can see highlighted throughout AO1 in purple, AO2 in yellow and AO3 in green, and you can see how all of these assessment objectives have been achieved throughout. At this point, pause, read through the model answer again and make any improvements to your own answer from this in green pen. Well done, you have now successfully completed your assessment feedback and hopefully can see lots of improvements as well as highlighting your best achievements throughout. But what's next? You may have already started in lesson the UK landscapes and looking at the majority and major upland and lowland areas as well as the river systems across the UK. Shortly after this, you will be moving on to the coast topic, looking through coastal processes, characteristics and formations of landforms such as headlands and bays, cliffs, wave-cut platforms, cave arch stump, and also depositional landforms such as beaches, sand dunes, spits and bars. You will then identify this to a case study within the UK and furthermore look at how we can then manage the coastline through hard and soft engineering, managed retreat and again link back to a UK case study. All of these ideas will be familiar to you from Key Stage 3, but obviously we will go into a lot more depth. Your final task to take you to the end of the lesson is now can you find any newspaper articles discussing coasts, for example, their use or how they're used to protect. How do we make money from them, for example attracting tourists, or how much does it cost to protect an area? Well done on your assessments and congratulations on your feedback. Thank you.